So I am prepping episode 2 of the Carrie Read Along series. The Carrie Read Along series will have a review at the end of it, then a darkest detail video, which I'll talk about a little bit in this video. But I wanted to sort of get through a few thoughts that I'm not sure are going to find their way into the Read Along series, as well as talking a little bit about the darkest detail. But the place where I wanted to start this is with the writing. How effortless and I don't mean effortless in a bad way. And I'll get back to effortless in a bad way in a second here. How effortless the writing really is in Carrie. There are a couple times here and there where it feels a little bit forced. You have spoilers. Carrie's death scene feels a little bit forced, but that's a big moment in the novel. If that's the biggest forced moment in the entire novel, that's a sin you can live with. That's where that has to occur. But throughout the entirety of the novel, you don't have. Now, look, you don't have the sort of innovation with writing that happens at times in The Shining when you're talking about psychic distance and things like that. When you're talking about a meta, when you're with The Shining, there is a meta element that is narrative on a haunted hotel that is providing Jack narrative on his own life. So there's a lot of layers to The Shining, which is a hallmark of a more experienced writer. Carrie, this being his first novel, doesn't have all of that sort of layering, doesn't have all of that sort of innovation worked into it. It doesn't have the it's not as sharp as though it is a very long novel, it is a very sharp novel from Stephen King. Carrie, however, feels effortless. You can sit down and just chunk away at this book. That's something that I said I'd get back around to it. That's something that we don't get from Holly, in my opinion. That's something that we don't get from Fairy Tale, in my opinion. Fairy Tale, in particular, feels to me like the bad type of effortless. Or Holly, I'm sorry, or Fairy Tale. No, Fairy Tale. I got twisted in my words. I don't remember what I said now. Fairy Tale is the bad type of effortless, where it felt like Stephen King just went with whatever was his first instinct. That is an effortless type of writing, but often it doesn't have payoffs. Fairy Tale never felt like it had any payoffs. So for me, that's one of the reasons that the novel really failed. But Carrie does have those payoffs. You get Carrie's death scene. You get Sue feeling as if she has maybe not moved on, but as if she has accepted the Carrie White incident as part of her life. You get these moments in Carrie. You get there is the element of rough and tumble lovemaking between our villains in this novel. And at first, that seems to not make sense. But at the end, it feels like a natural progression of the characters. Um, a lot of the small moments in this novel really feel earned. And that's for anyone who's spent any time in writer circles, writers groups, or writers programs literally through a college, earning moments is a cliche, right? Because it's a cheap way to offer criticism. Oh, did your character earn this payoff at the end of the story? And it's something that sounds very smart and we can just add in at the end of a critique and everyone, oh, yes. Is it earned? We have to make sure that it is earned. But here, everything does feel earned. It feels like everyone in this novel maybe doesn't get what they deserve, But everyone in this novel gets something that was a natural progression. The next thing I wanted to talk about a little bit, the themes in this novel, especially. So, this goes, in my opinion, hand in hand with the sort of effortlessness of the writing in Carrie. Stephen King, in On Writing, said that you don't want to put themes into your novel. You don't want to put it into your work. It feels forced that way. What you want to do is you want to write your whole story and then see if there's any threads in there that you can just kind of tease out. Like what's in the novel that we can sort of pluck out and make a thread through a little bit stronger, a little bit meatier. And you have the ideas of color, white being pure, well, white being virginal, white being um, almost holy, but not quite. Well, then we go back and we make Carrie's last name White. Carrie is the Carrie's. So in the on the opposite end of that, everything red is seen as impure. Everything red is seen as demonic. Everything red is seen as the road to ruin. And the novel begins with Carrie White starting her period. So those two colors clash through our protagonist's last name and the beginning of menstruation before the themes are even set for the reader. Now, whether or not Carrie's last name was White before Stephen King went back and revised the novel, I have no idea. But it feels like something that was probably edited later so that Carrie's last name became emblematic in the overarching sort of themes of the novel. And in that much, they're very playful, right? They're very playful themes because these are common themes. These are themes that do not have to be really, that A, don't have to hamstring the novel, but B, don't really have to be leveled out with a meat cleaver, right? You know, if you have any experience with literature, with symbolism, white is pure, red probably not. And I think that the fact that these things are so, like, I think that there's room to read this and call those themes ham-fisted, right? But I don't think they are. I think that they are simple enough that they fit into a simple revenge story horror novel. There has to be something said for that. They don't feel out of place, whereas if you were to pull themes from Hamlet and put the themes of Hamlet in this novel, probably they don't go all that well. If you were to pull out the theory of hauntology by Jacques Derrida, this novel was written 30 years 20 years before hauntology was even a thing, so I realize how silly that sounds now. But if you were to try to make this about hauntology or Marxism or anything like that, it would be silly. It wouldn't feel right. In the same way, so in pop culture, if the Adam West Joker were to pop up in the Nolan Batman films, doesn't fit. If Heath Ledger's Joker travels back in time to the Adam West Batman TV show, doesn't work, right? But these themes feel natural. And speaking of feeling natural, so are all of the characters. So I think that at times in it, during the child scenes, there are moments that are adult enough that we're forced to question them. We're forced to say, would kids really act that way? But I think probably yes, right? I don't think we give children enough credit in today's society for acting things out, right? We assume that they're just little sort of brainless automatons, right? But I don't think they are. I think they have more autonomy than that. Um, but at times in that novel, we have to question it anyway. At times in The Shining, you look at Jack's actions and you think, is this really realistic? Right? It's a good novel overall, but there's just little moments that, not big sins with the writing. I never felt that in Carrie. All of the characters in Carrie seem to be, from moment one through the novel, to be acting in step with what it is that they are. They're teenagers. So even at the beginning, when Sue joins in on the bullying and then later realizes that's not me. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, she even realizes in the moment, what am I doing? Why am I acting this way? But that's realistic, right? There's someone to be bullied and teens have to bully. And so it happened. And later, all of that recompense comes back. The characters in this novel all feel very real. A little bit less in part two when they are talking to Congress. Is it Congress? Senate hearing? Whoever they're talking to. A little bit less than that it feels natural and normal. A little bit of that feels forced, but that's excusable. Um, I wanted to talk a little bit about The Darkest Detail. There is a series on the channel called The Darkest Detail, or Emily Dickinson's Darkest Poem, that sort of thing. It's a series that I do where I try to deconstruct and reconstruct a little bit from a story or poem, etc. And the really neat thing that I think is presenting itself from this novel to be the darkest detail is hope. Hope is the darkest detail. Never would this thing have happened if Carrie White weren't given hope. If Carrie White just stayed at home on prom night because she was the girl that everybody made fun of and never had that moment, the high of her life, going to prom and winning prom queen, if she had never had that high, she never would have had this revenge. She was so beaten down her entire life that she would have just accepted the rest of it. But this moment where she gets hope and then feels like everyone is laughing at her anyway, that's it, baby. So that is going to be a very fun video for me to write. And the last thing I wanted to talk about, there is something alive in this novel that is gone in the United States. It's no longer part of our culture, I don't think. There is a part of this novel that is, you almost have to say, expired. It's no good anymore. You can't do it. You couldn't write a novel like this today. What part is that? There is an underlying fear through this novel, and if I can find a way to work this into the review, I'm going to, but I don't know how I would do it. There's a fear of never leaving home. There's a fear of never leaving your town. And I don't think that we have that anymore. I graduated high school in 2004. Basically, that was pre-internet. There was no real semblance of the internet as it is today. Almost no video at all on the internet. Video makes things tangible. Video makes things real. Video makes things right next door. I can't remember. I think it was a philosopher I can't remember where this comes from, but there's an idea that one of the reasons that society is degenerating is that everything on your television screen, the way that you are sort of conditioned by life is that your television screen looks like a window because it's framed and it's rectangular. It looks like a window. Somewhere deep in your lizard brain, every time you look at the TV screen, it feels like you're looking at your neighbors. So one of the reasons for the degeneracy of life is that looking into that TV screen, you see all of these things going on, all of the horror. You see all of the rich people that make you feel worse about yourself. You see all of the beautiful people that make you feel worse about yourself. Well, the internet's the same way. You're looking at a screen for the internet. It feels like everyone's right next door. YouTube makes us feel right next door to each other. If you've somehow found yourself 16 minutes into this video, it feels like I'm right there with you. That was not the case in 1974. So today, everyone at least has the sort of illusion, I guess it would be, that they're well traveled. Everyone sort of has the illusion that they are not stuck at home, but they are. Seeing, so one of the things I wonder is how people who are born in 2000, 2004, as opposed to graduating high school in 2004 like my ancient ass, if that element of this novel is just completely lost for them because they've never felt it, because they've never known it. I'm old enough that the internet wasn't really, there was a legitimate fear among everyone that I graduated with that they would never go anywhere. They would never do anything. They would never see anything. They would never experience anything. They would never accomplish anything. That's in this novel. Almost invisibly so. Almost to the point where you wonder if it is intentionally in this novel, but it's there. And that was a real fear. It's just an interesting observation. And I think that's why it's an interesting thing to observe. I guess I shouldn't take the credit for that, but it's an interesting thing to observe. So I just don't know that I can find a way to get it into the review. But anyway, that's all I have for this video. If you like or appreciate what it is that I do here, hitting the like button really does help me out, as it tells YouTube to share this video with other literature lovers. If you find yourself here by chance but not design, consider subscribing, because there is an entire read-along to be had for Carrie on the channel. There's an entire read-along of The Shining on the channel, most of the way through Holly on the channel. Got everything for Fairy Tale except a review, so there's that. But we will hopefully return to those series as well. But yeah, that's all I have for this. I hope to have you for the Carrie read-along series, because I think that there's the review in particular, if I can execute, will be, I think will be worth watching. So hope to see you next time.